quadriceps, but let's make sure. We have the vasti, lateralis, medius, and intermedius. They come from the intertrochanteric region, so they are pure knee muscles. They're coming from the femur and attach through whatever we want to call this structure going over the knee. Whether we want to call the whole thing the quadriceps tendon, whether we want to call the top of it the quadriceps tendon, and the bottom of it the tibial tendon, or whether we want to call it the tibial ligament. I don't care what you call it. Just recognize it's a continuous structure with the patella sitting in. The function of these muscles is to extend the knee. In a moment, maybe several moments, we're going to work on going up and down the step. Seems like a strange thing to do. I find that at your point, students often have trouble seeing what happens when you go up and down the step. Okay? The quadriceps function is to extend the knee or to keep it from flexing. Or to allow it to flex slowly. And we just talked there about the three kind. One method I have of identifying muscle contractions are concentric, isometric, or eccentric. We then have the hamstrings that we've already talked about, and they come from the pelvis, go down and attach to the tibia or the fibula. You have vastus medialis, the semitendinosus, semimembranosus, and the biceps that has two parts to it. And if we say the biceps, what must we say?
Which one?
We must say femoris, and then yes, we got to say, is it the long head or the short head? Because the short head is a pure knee flexor. So you could use it to flex the knee without extending the hip. Now, what else would the hamstrings do at the knee? Okay, let's talk about a little more bit about what the knee does. I want all of you to very carefully, slowly extend your knees, and I don't want you to look at your knee. I want you to look at either the distal tibia or your foot. And as you extend your knee, see what happens. And it's going to be a slight movement. I want you to slowly extend your knee and look at your distal tibia or your foot. Well, it's nice on you. What does the distal tibia do as you extend your knee?
Is it supposed to rotate?
Huh?
Is it supposed to rotate?
Is it supposed to rotate?
Mine don't. Yeah.
Yes, it does. I can see it.
It's a modified hinge joint, so those last couple degrees are rotation.
Well, in the last, depending on which textbook you look at 5 to 10 degrees, something happens. The tibia,
I don't see this.
look at me. You might see it better than me.
Oh, there it goes.
Look at my foot.
Your foot goes this way.
My foot actually doesn't.
Your sheep.
Huh?
Your sheep.
My foot goes that. No, it's my tibia that does that. The tibia laterally rotates. Now, do you want the name you will remember for this? The screw-home mechanism. Screw home. You know, a screw, whatever kind of screw you think of. Okay, the screw home In those last few degrees, the tibia rotates. Now, if I'm standing, it's the femur that rotates, right? Closed kinematic chain. Either one can move. In the last few degrees, the tibia rotates, and that locks the knee. If I can get a paralyzed person standing, and I can push the knee into a full extension, I don't have to provide any support at the knee as long as I get his line of gravity slightly anterior to the knee, because that is enough to hold your knee in full extension. You're going to be doing manual muscle testing. I want you to apply it today. If I am testing quadriceps strength, where should the knee be placed to truly test quadriceps strength?
30 degrees in flexion.
Huh?
30 degrees in
Not 30. I don't need 30.
20.
5 to 10. Because if I do it in full extension, I'm not testing the quadriceps, I'm testing the joint structure. Because at that point, the joint structure, the capsule and the ligaments and everything wind tight. And that is the close, packed, locked position of the knee. Why did it take them so long to create a good total knee replacement? Well, what do you suppose they put in to begin with?
Metal.
Huh?
Metal.
Well, yeah, but what did they put in to begin with? A hinge. They put in a hinge. Now, anybody here ever done metal work? What happens to metal if you keep turning it a little bit? It will not only warp, but it
Create
will...
shavings, like it, the
Well,
metal.
it'll create shavings, but it'll break. And that's what happened with the first knee replacements. When they started doing it, they put in a pure hinge. This is not a hinge joint. This is a modified hinge joint that has primarily flexion extension, but terminally it has rotation, and those hinge joints either tore the bone apart or tore the hinge apart. So that locking is important. That's why I can stand for a little while. Do they ever let servicemen stand at attention for a long period of time? What do they do? Pass out because they're not getting any blood flow. So you'll have them stand at ease. So they move a little bit. But if I stand at attention and lock my knees, how much quadriceps activity should I have? Really none, as long as I get my line of gravity slightly ahead of the knee. Okay. Now, again, what is the function of the hamstrings at heel strike? Are muscles smart or dumb? Dumb. So what is the quadriceps going to do? Huh? And what's it going to do at the knee? How much is it going to extend it?
Well, your hamstrings will keep it from hyperextending.
What I'm after is the quadriceps are going to extend the knee as much as they can, put it in a lock, and then push it into more extension. So what do the hamstrings do?
Keep it from going.
Keep it from going into hyperextension. Okay, another thing. Let's suppose I got paralyzed quadricep on the right. I come to heel strike. What does gravity want to do to me? Take me down. What's the quadriceps job here? Keep me up, slowly extend me. What will I do if I have no quadriceps on the right side? I don't like buckling. I'm old enough. When you get to be my age, the good thing to know is that somewhere between 94 and 96 out of 100 falls do not cause serious injury. That leaves that other 4 to 6 that do. I've had enough of mine now. I don't want my knee to buckle. What could I do to keep my knee from buckling? Huh? But my quads are gone. I got to do it, you know, even if they're weak, I'm going to strengthen them. But it's not going to happen today. What?
A cane?
No, I'm not smart enough to get a cane. The cane won't solve my problem anyway.
Strengthen hamstrings?
Oh, I want to fall harder, huh?
Strengthen your hip flexors.
I actually, not my hip flexors. If I got to use something, what am I going to use? Huh?
Your glutes,
Which one?
maximus.
Gluteus maximus, because I could use in a closed chain, I could extend my knee. What's wrong with that? Well, my hamstrings are wired to work with the quadriceps. They are not wired to work with the glute. The glute, if it extends my knee in a... Now, does everybody see how the glute extends my knee in a closed kinematic chain? If I extend my hip, I could throw my pelvis back, but more likely I'm going to move my femur back and I'm going to go into genu recurvatum. I want a simple thing I could do. Why do you assume I have to walk with my knee forward? What would happen if I laterally rotated my hip at heel strike? Now the force would be into what? Huh? See, flexion is now not going to be flexion. It's going to be abduction of the tibia at the femur, and what would I have that would keep me from going anywhere? Huh?
Abductors and adductors?
Medial collateral ligament. I could, if I got a little bit of quadriceps, but not enough to keep me from going down, if I laterally rotated my hip, I would now have the medial collateral ligament taking most of the strain. Yeah.
Can you start from the gluteus maximus again?
What is
I want to understand what you're saying.
What does the gluteus maximus do?
It helps you stand if you're sitting.
I know. I want you to use the three-point system that you haven't been introduced to. I mentioned it though. It extends the femur at the hip. I used to stand up on the table and demonstrate this. No more. I mentioned I've already had my falls. Okay? Don't get shocked, ladies. Okay, if I extend my femur, that means I move my femur. I'll go over here. That means I move my femur posteriorly. Right? When I move my femur posteriorly, that brings the tibia posteriorly because it's hooked on. And that extends my knee. So my hip, in a closed chain, my hip extensor also functions as a knee extensor. Same thing as I said, if I'm sitting here, if I'm sitting here and I want to stand up, the quads aren't the most important muscle. The gluteus maximus pulls my femur back, and until I get to about right here, it's in a better length tension relationship than the quads are. Okay? So that if I don't have much in the quadriceps, I could use a sudden contraction of the gluteus maximus to whip my knee, pull the femur back and whip my knee into extension.
Okay.
Okay, but the problem is the brain is wired to work the hamstrings and the quadriceps to keep me from going into hyperextension. It's not wired to slow the gluteus maximus down. Plus, it's got to whip me into extension, not extend me slowly.
Okay.
Now, that I'm saying is what the patient will probably do is laterally rotate
Laterally rotate.
so that it is now the medial collateral ligament that is preventing the bending. Because we're no longer bending this way, we're bending this way. Think about that for a while.
Because the gluteus maximus.
Gluteus
laterally
maximus
rotates
is
also.
there. The gluteus no, it's there. All it wants to do is keep my hip straight. So I'm not going to have to whip it right there.
So you're gonna do this. And
Yeah.
The pressure comes on.
So eventually I'm going to wear out the ligament and the cartilage.
Because of the compression, not.
Well, what I'm going to do is the knee is designed to get force with patella anteriorly. It's not designed to get force medial-lateral like that. So eventually I'll wear it down.
Because are you gonna? All right.
Okay? Think about it.
All right.
I'm getting you ahead. Okay, the sartorius, I mentioned it last time. I'm not sure we went over it. It's going from where to where?
What was the question?
Sartorius.
ASI is not the pes and serenus.
Don, oh, you just used the fancy word, the pes anserinus. The pes anserinus is a common tendon. Okay, with the adductor. No. Gracilis, that's right, I think. Gracilis. Yeah. Okay, and it laterally rotates the hip, flexes the hip, abducts the hip, and flexes the knee.
But doesn't it rotate the knee?
Huh?
Does it also rotate the knee?
Rotate the tibia at the femur. Yeah, a little bit. You're probably not going, that's not going to be the most important thing to learn. Okay.
Can I ask a joint capsule question?
I have a joint capsule question up here. You might want to listen. 'Cause
In extension of the knee during gait, isn't there a small muscle deep to the quadriceps that elevates the joint capsule?
not to my knowledge. I'm not coming up with it. Now, in the back, which is what I was about to mention, there is a muscle, the popliteus. It's on this page. Comes from the lateral condyle of the femur below the epicondyle and lateral collateral ligament down and medially to the posterior surface of the tibia. I just read that. I don't have this memorized. You can memorize it if you want. We just were talking about the knee locking. The locking of the knee is a passive process, i.e., if you take hold of the patient's knee and move him into extension, the knee will lock. If they use the gluteus maximus to whip the knee into extension, the knee will lock. Won't be a pleasant experience, but it will lock. Similarly, if you put the patient up on the table and let gravity flex the knee, it will unlock. But the popliteus is a knee flexor. Why? Because it's posterior to the axis. But many people think it assists in unlocking the knee.